We're recording, and welcome. I'm Jon Bek, and I'm here with Wendy, and this is the Week 2 CIS Hangout. And I'm going to put Wendy on the spot because the Hangouts are student time, and so although I have an agenda and I'm happy to work some parallel exercises and do some things I have prepared, my preference is that the entire time together be driven by student initiative and questions and what's interesting to you. So Wendy, you were just about to tell me that today is the first day you've really got your console working and that you started to really buckle down and tear into chapter 3. So,
Yes.
tell me what you've seen so far that you have questions about or you'd like to see a demonstration of, or anything that was a rough spot or not clear that we could start with.
I have, from what I've gathered so far, I have a little difficulty with understanding nulls. I had a little difficulty with getting them to work the way I thought they were supposed to work. And I just, like I said, I briefly went through everything, just really half the chapter spot. So I haven't had a chance to go back and see what I did wrong or really do a lot of research, but that was kind of.
Okay, well, let's take a look at what a null looks like in a table, and why a null should or shouldn't be allowed. So I've got the SQL Server Management Studio up, and I've got the TAL database up here. And let's see, I should have somewhere in, probably in customers, and I think someone has just joined us. Welcome.
Hi, welcome. It's Lois.
Hi, I'm glad you're here.
Hey, Lois Ritter. Hi, thanks.
Yeah,
Me too. Thanks. Thank you for all of your time. You know, last week I couldn't be on the call, but I listened to the recording and it was really helpful. So thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. And the Hangouts, the live lectures, this is an online class. It's asynchronous. None of the live stuff is required. I just think it's useful to make it an option. And of course, I always record it. If students can't be present, and a lot of them can't because of their work schedules or other study schedules, they can send me emails ahead of time and ask the questions. So the question that Wendy had just posed was this null thing. I don't get it, and how can I wrap my head around it? So let's see if we can find a null. Let me go ahead, and I've got the TAL database up. I'm going to right-click on the customer table and just script out the top 1,000 rows, grab the splitter bar, and make a little more screen real estate. And I'm going to grab the talking heads and slide them up out of the way. Okay, so this doesn't have any nulls in it currently, and nulls can be allowed or disallowed. And when we get further into database design, that's really more like the CIS 107 class, we'll talk about why that should be. But let's play with this a little bit. Let me monkey with it. So if I come back up here and on the customer table, I edit the top 200 rows. There aren't 200 in there. So you'll notice that there's a new record ready to go in, and it's null, 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 null. Null is not 0. Null is not a space. Null is specifically an absence of a value. Okay, so when to say that something is not allowed to be null is to say, when must we have that field, that attribute on a record before the record can be permitted? So can we ever have a customer who has no name? Probably not a good idea, but there may be a point at which the customer record exists, and we have the street, city, address, all the rest of that, but we don't know what the customer's name is. Maybe we're setting up with a company who is establishing a credit line. They've got their articles of incorporation, but they haven't filed their DBA. They don't know what that's going to be. We could actually have a customer with no name. What we have to have is we have to have a uniquely identifying key called a primary key on that table. So I don't think 999 is used. So can I have 999 and enter it and allow on this particular table, depends on how the rules were, the data definition rules, if that's allowed. If I press enter, it says row 13 was not committed. cannot insert the null value into the column customer name, it doesn't allow nulls on it. So there was a rule here that I have to have a customer name.
Now, did they create the person that you can actually control that rule, right?
That is exactly right. The only place that the rule is implicitly applied, meaning you didn't make the rule, is if you specify, as you should, and in some database engines you must specify a primary key on every table. Even if you provide no other indexes and no foreign keys, you have to have at least one primary key. The primary key, by definition, must be unique and it must not be null, with the notable exception of Microsoft is so screwy, Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access
Thank you. Yes.
argues from the deeps of time, and God knows why, they say, well, if there's only one null, then the one null is unique. Okay, I will concede that it's still a really bad idea.
Who came up with that logic? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's one of those oddities. So now if I put the name in there, let's test and see if any of the other fields are required to be not null. Oh, they're not. Okay, so the rules on this table, implicitly the customer number, because it is the primary key, has to be unique and has to not be null. So let's test that. What if I made it, what if I delete it and try and make it null, and then I try and save this? Was I able to save the table? I don't think that's saved. Or if I make it non-unique, 893. Not because it's a duplicate key.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see if I make it null. Possibly the script did not build this. Let's take a look at the keys and see. PK customer. No. See how that's built out, and this is where you would see some of your rules. See
Oh, got it. Allow nulls. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Only Microsoft would do that. Yeah, if it's the primary key, folks, ANSI standard says that it can't be. So for some reason, this table got built very strangely.
Okay.
So I'll have to talk to Pratt, and, the textbook author, and say, what did you do in your script, dude?
Well, that might have been why I was having some issues today when I was playing around. Okay.
Yeah, if you modify it, and so here's the thing, and this is useful, and I'm going to slide the talking heads aside off screen for just a moment so we can see this. I want you to play with these things, and I want you to play with the data. But when you do monkey around with it, you're changing things so that some things may not work as expected. You might not produce the expected results in the exercises. And so if you've been exploring, you've gone off script,
Yes.
then here's what I want you to do.
Reset.
You can reset it, and it's really easy to do that. Let me get all these queries kind of out of the way, and let me go open a file. So I'm going to go File, Open, and the file I've got is let's go ahead and drop tal. The publisher's scripts split the add and the create and the drop into two separate ones. And the other things that the publisher doesn't do that is maddening to me, the publisher, and I ought to just go ahead and modify these scripts, doesn't specify. Notice that we have actually at least two databases, in our sample databases. There's three more, so or four more. So we got HCIT and TAL right here. I need to be careful to say which table space, which database schema am I operating on. And so before I go and drop it, I want to say use TAL. And let's just go ahead and add that in there and run that. And now if I go look at TAL and look at the tables, actually what I need to do, because it looks like they're still there, they're cached. Just go ahead and refresh it. Now if we look at the tables, yeah, it lies to you. Isn't that nice? Microsoft tools. So now that the tables are gone. So now let's we're going to reuse that use, copy that, close out this file, File, Open, File, and let's go get the create cal script and come up to the very top of it, paste in that use tal, and run it. And now it's not only recreated the tables, but it has the sample data back in. So we're back to a pristine state. So we can, we can act fearlessly. We can gum this up as often as we like, wipe it out and reload it, and we're ready to go with the next exercise. So don't be afraid of messing something up. You're fine there. So, hey, Lois is on screen. Hi, Lois. Oh, did I lose you? Oh, I think we're back. Are we back? You went intermittent for a minute.
I can hear you.
Ah, good. Okay. All right. So internet stuff happens. All right. So there we are about nulls, what they mean and when they should be allowed. Sometimes we have to have a null, and a null actually, the lack of the absence of information is itself information. How's that for the Zen SQL statement of the day? What do I mean?
Perfect.
Imagine for a moment that we have an ordering system, and it tells me what you've ordered and the date upon which we shipped that order to fulfill it. What if the ship date is null? What does that mean?
Well, it could mean like when I ordered software and it was done via email, but that's not a good example. Well,
Okay.
obviously it means it wasn't shipped yet.
So I have received the order, but I have not yet shipped it. So one of the things the fulfillment manager wants every day is every morning he wants to have a report run to say, tell me all of the everything from the shipments table where the ship date is null. That's everything that hasn't been shipped yet, and I need to go find out why. Is it in stock? Is it out of stock, back ordered, or are we are we picking and packing? And if the ship date is more than a day or two old, and I'm seeing a null for the ship date, I'm going to be all over my crew, going, guys, John Smith in Apple Valley, Washington, is really waiting for his purple plastic trout, and his life will not be spiritually fulfilled without that purple plastic trout we had on special 2-for-1 on Groupon last week. So get those trout swimming upstream.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I get a little far afield with the whole trout thing. Not enough fishing this summer, sorry. So there's the null thing. What other questions have you guys got for me? Again, this is your time. You drive.
I wanted to see how you save scripts.
Okay, so let's create a trivial script and then we'll save it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So, oh yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm going to slide the talking heads aside for a moment and create new query. And you want to do this, which you want to see, on TAL or HCIT? I don't care.
Whatever's easier.
Yeah, they're both the same.
For some reason, my
TAL's got a smaller data set. So I'm going to take a look at the tables in, oh, it's not showing me because, again, it's cached. I need to refresh it. Okay, so there's our tables now. I'm seeing them. Okay, so I'm going to say use TAL, and I'm going to say select everything from customer where, oh, let's see, I don't have last name. What is it called? Name. Let me just peek right quick.
There was a.
There's customer name. Okay, where customer name. And notice I don't have to type the whole thing. When I start to type it, it'll give me a list. That's called IntelliSense. I can use my up and down arrow to grab it. Customer name is like, and I'm going to say it starts with a C and it has any character after that. And let's run it. Do we have any C's? No C's. How about I take a peek right quick, and it's like anything. Wrong wild card. problem with programming in too many languages. The wildcard character here is %. Okay, so there's toys galore. So let's say we want all the names that start with T and then have anything after them executed. Okay, so here's all the customers whose names start with T. Okay, and if you want to be fancy, let's say, and order the output. Let's see. Here it has, the balance here is less. So just to show you that we can flip that, I'm going to say order by balance, but it's already ordered by balance. So I'm going to flip that into ascending order. And there it is. So now I've got this script, and I'd like to save that for later reuse. Okay, one way to do that is simply say File, and we want to save SQL Query 5. That's not a very useful name, so I'm going to save it as. And I'm going to come over into Documents, and I'm going to come over to my CIS 117 demo folder. And what should we call this? How about we call it let's see, tal cust c name. That's good enough. .sql.
Right.
There it is. And so now, if I were to get rid of that, if I ever wanted to work on it some more, so I'm knocking off for the night, but I've got a lot of work going, and I want it to be, I want to pick it up in the morning. I just say File, Open, and it's going to be a file, and there it is. Open it up, run it, and I'm ready to pick up where I left off. Great
So you just save it like a file, like a regular file.
Yeah, yeah, that works. So, would you like to see a gotcha to avoid? This bites a lot of students. So let's say I do something that another student might imagine was a good thing to do. I copy that, and I open up Word. And that would make sense, right? Because you're used to running Word, and it's text. You can why can't you store the text in there? Well, sure you can. There's no problem with that, or is there? Okay, let me show you what will bite you. When you put it in here, what may happen? Word uses something called IntelliQuotes. Okay, so I'm in Word. Did you notice that this apostrophe is not the same character as this straight quote that got pasted? If I come in here and edit that, and then I come back here, you go, well, it still looks pretty much the same, Mr. Beck. Paste it in, and I go to run it. And it's like, well, wait, what? I know that works. Okay. Word disobligingly has a larger character set than the SQL, ASCII SQL, ANSI SQL language, and it will slip in those typographers quotes, those IntelliQuotes, and they just cause you all kinds of grief. The other thing that can happen is that Word, will put in potentially non-printable characters that you don't see them, but they're markup, they're layout stuff, because Word does some really nice markup. Let me show you the magic. If you ever get yourself in that corner, what you can do, copy that, and we have a friend called Notepad. And if you're working on a Mac, you just take your I forget, Pages, I think is what they call their editor, and tell it, hey, change this to plain ASCII text. But if I paste into Notepad, oh, wow, that's weird. Generally, most of the font sets in Notepad will drop the intelligent quotes, but I was wrong about that. Okay, so I learned something here too. It will at least get rid of the non-printable characters. So if you have a non-breaking space or markup or something like that, apparently you're still going to have to manually fix the things like the typographer's quotes if they get put in there. But that's the kind of thing, because you'll look at it and look at it and look at it, especially, can you imagine if you're in here and you have set both of these to an apostrophe mark, rather than the single tick mark that is SQL. And it looks right to your eye, and yet you keep throwing up errors like this. It's maddening, especially if you're a student and you know, to your eye, you've never seen this problem before. You're saying, I know I did it right. Well, actually, you did do everything right. It's just kind of a non-obvious problem. So kind of best moral of the story, try and avoid using Word as a repository for your stuff. If you do have to copy and paste from a Word document, you know, clean it up in Notepad, and then go back and look for those quotes. There may be one or two other characters besides single and double quotes that are a little bit they're actually a different character, and that's why that, you know, it's not the same ASCII code for a curved apostrophe than a single quote mark, and that's why the SQL editor reads it differently and says, well, that's not valid syntax. So great question, great segue.
That's a great tip. Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of those things that
thank you.
bite you. So, what else? What else have you run across that seems odd or difficult?
Could you give us just some general information on correcting errors in a table? I've always had a little bit of difficulty with that.
So, when you say errors in the table design, or errors in the query, or data?
Yeah,
that's correct.
if I'm data that I'm trying to delete or add, and then running queries on it. And
okay, so let's take a look at, and this is probably what we'll do for most of our work. Always starts, no matter how complex our table or our query is going to get, is start with just a select star. Give me everything. Okay, and I'm going to slide our talking heads off again. Okay, so now we've got the entire result set of this table that we can look at. So give me a for instance of what you would like to change, or what would be a problem with the table where you would like to correct it.
if I'm updating, if I'm deleting a customer, well, I've had instances in real life where you're changing the name, like there's been a takeover and you're just changing the name.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a lot of the information stays the same, but I think I'm doing everything right, and I'm still, you know, I can't do it.
Okay. There's two things to consider here generally. One is we need to learn how to do a general update query, and that's we're going to cover that in more detail in coming weeks, but I'll show you how to do one, and I'll show you how to find out how to do one. But the other thing is, if we're going to change the customer name, that's fine, provided that it isn't used as linking information that relates to another table. So in order to explore that, did you know we can do two queries on the same window at once?
No.
This is kind of useful. So let's start from, and let's see, have we got some orders out here? How about orders? Star from orders. And if I have both of them up there and I don't select just one to run, oh, look at that, I get two results.
Cool.
So there's an order number, and notice that order number 1 happens to belong to customer number 126. That's the linking thing. Okay, so what uniquely identifies an order is the order number. However, there is a foreign key, a secondary key that doesn't uniquely identify the order, but it's what links it back to who ordered it. So, so Toys Galore ordered whatever's on this order number on this date. Okay, so the customer num.
Oh, I see. So if you change the name,
if we were to change the primary key, now that's why we almost never change the value of primary key, and that's why we also use primary keys that are arbitrary. They don't have intrinsic meaning. We wouldn't use, I mean, you might say, hey, our rule is no two customers can have exactly the same name, and so we're going to use the customer name as unique. But what happens if you change it? It is a headache and a half if the primary key changes. Now, you can do it. There are ways to deal with it, but if you have a chance to use a little foresight in design, we choose synthetic or arbitrary primary keys for just this reason, that they don't really mean anything, and therefore they never, as long as they're unique, they never, ever, ever, we hope, have to change. So one of the interesting things we could do, however, is we would never edit it here where it's a primary key, but what if we misbooked this order, and this order for Toys Galore was actually ordered by the Everything Shop? How would we fix that? So what we want to do is we want to change 126 in order 51608 into the number 334. Okay, let me show you with an editor, and then we'll do the same thing with a command. So I'm going to open up Notepad and say what I'm doing, so I can undo it. Okay, so order number 51608 was 126, will be, and we're going to change it to 334, right? Okay, so I've made that note so I can backtrack. And now I'm going to come in and I'll open up a new query window. Actually, I can do this directly. And when I'm working with such small tables, it's really easy to do this. I'm going to come into orders. I'm going to say edit the top 200 rows because I haven't got more than that, right? So if I come over here and I find, what did I want? Order 51608, and the customer number was 126, and I change it to 334. Now, if I come back and rerun this query, it's updated. And so we have now changed it so that order that used to belong to Toys Galore is now associated with the Everything Shop. Okay. Now, imagine for a moment that we wanted to change it back. We would need to find the SQL syntax for opening it, or for updating it. So what we want to do, we want to, and this is a comment here. So I'm saying want to update orders table, make customer num be, and we want to set it back to 126, but not everywhere. If I stop here, the whole database will now, every order in it will belong to customer 126. That would be what we call in the business bad. And so
that would be called the pink slip.
And we're gonna learn how to undo those kind of bad moments.
I can totally see doing that.
Well, we're going to learn about the undo button for SQL is something called commit and rollback, and so we can begin a transaction, tell it to do a bunch of things, and then if an error is encountered or something can't be done, or if we just decide to bail out, we can issue the statement rollback, and it will put it back the way it was before, no matter how many steps to a complex level. If we start the transaction, it will put it all back the way it was before we monkeyed with it. Okay. So,
I need that in my life.
Oh God. When I meet my maker, we're going to talk about why life didn't come with an undo.
Yes.
You know, I'm driving down the freeway and I missed my on-ramp or my off-ramp. Undo, Lord, undo. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Okay, so we only want to do this where the order num is 511608. So there it is in what I would call pseudocode. It's English for what we want to do, but we haven't put it into formal query language, right? Okay, so just to show, I run this again, and it's still nothing changed. This is just a comment. So let me show you a shortcut for learning a lot of different SQL and see if this helps us. If you come over here and right-click on the table, and you say script table as update to a new query editor window, what the heck would that mean?
No idea.
it is going to do exactly what it said. It is going to script an update statement, a generic update statement for that table. It reads the table and puts all the pieces in. We didn't even have to go to the manual to learn how to put that in. See, it's created a little stub for us. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Sweet. Now we could also
look have to save that.
Yeah, and take a look at what you can script here. If you find that orders table, any table, you can say script table as. So you need a create statement, you need a drop statement, an alter statement, drop and create to, select, insert, update, delete. Pretty much everything you do. This, by the way, is called CrUD. Create, update, and delete. All the things what can you do to data? You can create it, you can delete it, you can update it. So create, update, delete is what database administrators call the CrUD. Create, update, delete, CrUD. So we're I'm teaching a bunch of CrUD in this class.
Suits my brain.
Yeah. Now let's go back over to don't need that one. Let's go back over here, and here was the comment about what we wanted to do, and I'm going to take that and just put it over here. It's a comment. I can put it anywhere. It doesn't change anything. Okay. And so we want to update the orders table. Well, I scripted the orders table. So look, it's given us the long name for orders, database owner dot orders, and it's all in the nice brackets. That's fine. You could leave it that way. If you were writing it for yourself, you would probably just write it this way, and that works too. That's fine. The long is what we call the fully qualified name. Those are nice, and since the machine built it for us, I'll let it do all the typing. So it needs to set order number to, or do we want to change the order number? No, we don't want to change the order number. So we're going to get rid of this piece. As a matter of fact, we can leave that there by commenting that out. Do we want to change the order date? Nope, we don't want to change that. Do we want to change the customer number? We do.
Oops.
Hello there.
We lost your screen. We see you.
I'm going to ask you to say that
Your
again.
screen.
We
lost. I can see you, but I can't see your screen.
Yeah, I'll see your face, but
let's see if we can get the screen share back up. Are we there again?
yes.
And let me just
Now we are.
check that we are still recording. Yeah, we're still recording. So sorry about the glitch. I have kids that like to play massively multiplayer online games in 3 different rooms while I'm trying to use the internet. So we have to accommodate the.
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have any of them banging at the door. You must have trained them well.
No, I stocked up on junk food before the meeting. They're not bothering me as long as the junk food lasts. So just to recap what I was doing, I had scripted to an update statement using the tool right in the SQL Server Management Studio, which built the script. I got rid of the pieces by commenting them out. I don't need to change the order number. I don't need to change the order date. I got rid of the leading comma, right? Because this is now the first statement. The only second, third, and the nth many statements after the first get a comma. So customer number is going to equal, and it's got a whole declaration here. We don't need that whole declaration. What we need is the expression. Okay. Now, in this particular table, if we look at it, is the customer number a number which would have been a smart thing to do, or did Pratt design it as a bar chart, as a character string, which is kind of strange, but Pratt does some strange things. So let's take a look at orders and look at the columns, and we look at the order and it is indeed a char 5. So since it's a string, that means we got to put it in quotes. And what is the value? Remember my notes. I saved my notes. Order 51608 was 126. We changed it to 334. So we want to change it back to 126, right? So we're going to make that 126. And it says where, and there's some condition. If I don't put a condition here, it will change every record in the database. We already said that's bad. That's like Ghostbusters, crossing the streams. Dogs and cats sleeping together, all life in the universe as you know it.
Yeah, but it worked in the end.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to put in a where condition. let's not cross the stream. So where what? Where
The order number is only the order number.
order num is equal to 51608. Now, if you are gun shy about this, you can always test your CrUD, your create, update, or delete. Those are destructive things because they change the reality, right? You can always test them by using a select, okay? So if we say select star from orders where order num equals 51608. And now I have two queries on here. If I just want to run one, I can highlight just the one I want to run, execute it, and it's now saying 334.
Okay.
And so is the rest of this right? Now, since I think this is right, I'm going to get rid of the comments, which I think the text is kind of confusing. But we started, it was there. We just commented it out so we could take away a piece at a time. So we're going to set customer num to equal 126, where the order num is 51608. And then look, what happens if we just go ahead and leave it, run that select again? Well, that's going to check and see. So if I run this and it changes, and this instead of being 334 is 126, and I got what I wanted. Let's, shall we pull the trigger? No!
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, select star from order 51608, set customer num equals 126. Oh, did I highlight the whole thing? There we go. I had highlighted only that piece, so I didn't run the upper query. My bad. So now it has changed it to 126. What if you wanted to change?
Wouldn't it be easier if there was just like a back button, like on?
There is. In fact, we could, and you'll learn about this. We could come up here above this one step in the batch. Let's break this all out. And we could say begin transaction. And then what we could do is if we were to run this and change it to something else, and then before we issue the in transaction statement, if we were to issue the word rollback, so if we issue this command, that will put it back. And we're going to learn about that. That's really weeks from now. Okay, so I'm going to show you it's there, and we're going to learn about that. Right now, this is a pretty simple thing. But what if you did 20, 30 steps as part of a batch?
Yeah.
Some business processes are complex. Being able to take a whole transaction, this is called making it atomic, right? What did we learn in chemistry about atoms? You know, despite what the folks from the physics department say, there is nothing smaller than an atom. It's the smallest indivisible unit. So if you take a big complex thing and make it an atomic, you make it an atom, then you change the atom, you put the atom back. I don't care how complex its atomic structure is. It could have 500 steps in it. You change it, you can put it back. But that also means that until you commit it, those changes are pending. And that can have implications, because what if somebody else is waiting to be able to update or do something, get that updated data, and you haven't really committed it yet? So we need to learn to be careful with that, because timing is going to matter. You don't want to lock up a whole chunk of data that can't be or isn't updated yet, or it's on hold until the commit is made. We need to be careful with that. It's a loaded gun, but we'll learn to use it wisely and what the rules are for using it, and you're going to be able to do some of that stuff. That's really for more of a moderate or intermediate to an advanced SQL class, when you start writing a lot of complex transactions where a lot of you're building applications, but a lot of the application logic lives with the data, which is a great thing, because if you put your business rules where the data is, you don't have to worry about some application programmer in building application A downstream writes his code or her code differently than application programmer B does that has to deal with the same business logic. You don't have two different sets of rules getting implemented. You get your official, what the chief information officer blessed as being the official business rule for the database. You put it in the database, and now everybody who writes an application that's downstream from that,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
they inherit that creamy, golden, delicious goodness free of charge. And think about this. When you install, let's say we've got 5,000 laptops across 7 states in our business. If we put the logic in the application and then we have to change the application, we got to go over 7 states and 5,000 workstations and make the change in each one, and things are not going to be right until everybody has the update. Where's our database? Central. We change the business logic at the database in a stored procedure or a transaction script, and all of a sudden, everybody inherits the new business rule. If we got a bug, we did a date calculation and it's wrong, and then we fix it. If the bug is at the database level and we fix it at the database level, everybody downstream of that gets fixed automatically without waiting for the IT department to go do an expensive update, which they probably just updated the software last week, right? Isn't that how it works in your neighborhood? Is the street department comes and paves, and you have a beautiful new paved road, and the sewer department comes behind them a week later, tearing it up to lay new sewer pipe. Guys, didn't you talk to each other? What's the problem? Well, same kind of thing in IT all the time. It's a classic systems problem. All right, so that we got kind of far afield on that one. Learned some cool stuff. What else?
I'm stopping. My brain's full.
Okay. All right. That's perfectly okay. So
that happens.
I have stuff I can show you, and it's practical because I can go over parallel exercise set, at least a couple problems. We're going to run short of time, but one of the things I did in designing the HCIT and the CIS 117 commerce data sets for this class that I use for my exercises is I wrote assignment questions, exercise questions that are directly analogous to the textbooks questions about the TAL database or the Salmaris or the Colonial database. And the reason I did that is a lot of people buy Pratt's book, and a lot of people therefore also get their hands on the solution set. And so to make it less tempting for a student to just submit the textbook answers, I said, you know what, I'll show you the textbook answer, but the problem I want you to do is going to be on my data set, but it's going to be directly analogous. So if I ask you, if Pratt on the TAL database said, give me all the customers whose names start with C, I'll say, give me all the person records in the healthcare information technology database whose last name starts with C.
Yeah, I know how you work. I had NoSQL, so at least for a while. So
yeah, there you go.
That's a good way to learn. Yeah.
Well, right, and the nice thing is that you can look at the solution to a very similar problem, and that's that's how I learned on my.
That's how I learned. That's great. Yeah.
Is they started me out with something similar and simpler than to what they were showing me, and on my own, and then they would turn me loose on the more complex piece where I could practice the same principle I just learned, and lo and behold, about 2 times out of 5 I'd get it right. But I took the short bus to school, so don't go by me. All right.
Well, that makes me feel better.
Good. Well, this stuff, it is. It's new. It really is learning a new language, and it's anytime we're dealing with computers, people are very wonderful creatures. We go from here to here in our thinking without going through the intervening space.
Yeah.
Computers, they're machines. They have to go every incremental step of the way to get between those. And so you can reprogram your brain in learning a new programming language, SQL language, that kind of stuff, so that you can tell the computer step by step. But don't tell me that is an intuitive or a natural thing for a human being to do. That's not the way we think. We can, fortunately, the most elastic and programmable computer that we have is still right here between our ears. And so,
Except for the crazy people who developed the program in the first place.
even they didn't usually start out here. It's something that they had to learn. I'm not saying there's not the rare exception, but I'll tell you a funny experience that happened to me a few years ago when I was first teaching an introductory logic class. And I thought, oh, I'm so excited. I looked at the curriculum and I said, oh, boy, I really need to beef up this curriculum because my students are going to be so bored. And I started out with mostly the first couple weeks what was in the curriculum, and my students were struggling. And I'm like, I don't understand. How are you not getting this? And then I had one of those 2 a.m. epiphanies. I sat right up in bed and said, oh my goodness, I forgot. I almost failed my first programming class, and fortunately, the instructor that taught me, big teddy bear of an African-American man, ex-Navy, fellow by the name of Dr. Arter at Valley College when I was 16 years old, just old enough to drive myself to class during the summer. He was wise enough to backload the gradebook so that most of your assignments that were worth anything came at the end of class. And I was just having a heck of a time until it finally clicked, and he had taught me enough and I had practiced enough that my brain started to learn to think this way. And all of a sudden, in the last couple weeks of the class, it clicked. And when I realized, or I remembered, hey, this didn't used to be. It's like people who are really fine musicians that learn to sight read music and forget that at one time they couldn't. They look at the page and they hear music. I look at the page and I see mush. I know nothing about music, right? I know that those black dots mean something, but I have no clue what. It's a matter of learning and decoding. And, it is humbling to remember that at the beginning, you start out having to translate every bit of this little by little, but the more you practice, the more facility you'll gain with it. And that Sartori moment, that aha moment will come, sometimes as a big moment, sometimes in a number of small moments as you go through the class. The way to succeed, ask lots of questions. I'm happy to answer them. And follow the pattern. Learn to hum the melody line until you learn the words.
Well, don't you have the same problem that I run into though? I've learned so many different languages, or at least part of different languages throughout my career. I mean, from I'm dating myself here, from COBOL to C+ to HTML. I mean, XML. It's like sometimes some things just like, okay, wait a minute, which one is this? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, and you learn to develop different headspaces for it. It's just like,
It gets overwhelming sometimes. I get a little bit confused. I guess it's just age.
No, it's overwhelming for everyone at every age, and it is sometimes hard to keep context.
And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, dummy, that's.
Yeah. No, it's hard, but it's you'll learn to put it in separate headspaces. Just like if you've truly mastered, and I never quite mastered a second language, but I know a little bit in a second language. Programming languages I actually do, but in spoken languages, what I started to learn when I got close to being reasonably adept at another language was that I could start to think in that language. It was a different headspace, and so you kind of slip into that mode, and it just what can I say? Practice. That's why there are a lot of hours of assignments, and the one thing that students do remark about, they don't necessarily complain about it, God bless them, but they remark about is some of my exercise sets seem kind of long. I mean, 15 questions, Professor, did we really need 15 questions?
They're pretty quick to go through though, and they're logical, so it's
Well, it depends, and we get further on in the term. Not
I'm
all
sure it'd be more difficult. Yeah.
They get a little bit more involved. But the point is that it's like learning music. Part of it is training your head, and part of it seems like training your fingers. And it's practice. So there we are. All right. So let's take a look. Unless if you have other questions, again, I'm here for you. I'm happy to answer if something else has occurred.
No. It's just like you said. It's just kind of wrapping it's just practice and getting your brain trained that way. It's, I find it like statistics classes. Like halfway through, I'll finally go, "Oh, that's what that is talking about on day one."
And it isn't embarrassing. It's so simple. Yikes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, dang, it is embarrassing.
Don't be embarrassed by it. You're learning to think in a new paradigm. And here's the thing. Human beings, the way we usually learn is we scaffold information and we organize it by analogy. If we can look at something and say, this is similar to something I already know, we can master that material very quickly. When you're talking about programming, for most of us, we are doing something for which there is very little analogy in our experience. And so it is very, very difficult indeed. And that's why I say, hum the melody line until you learn the words. See the pattern, repeat what the pattern did, and then, change a little bit. That's why I like parallel exercises. So, speaking of which, let me see. Do I have a parallel exercise set? Yeah. So here's my notes on TAL distributors and my exercise set for HCIT, or actually it's parallel, either one. And we can do a couple of these. So let's start with the most basic one. List all the rows and columns for the complete orders table. And that is parallel to what the exercise is in, exercise number 1 in the HCIT exercise set this week. So we're going to use the list all columns and rows for the orders table. So we're going to start by, we're going to use TAL, and we're going to say select star. That's all columns. And if we don't use a where filter, we'll get all rows as well. From orders. Oh, not order line, orders. If I can type, there we go. And run it. Okay, so that's easy. Next thing is list the names of customers with credit limits of $10,000 or more. Again, we're talking TAL. So of customers, we probably would find that in the customer table. And if I look at the customer table, do I have customer names? I do. And do I have credit limits in there? I do. Okay, so the smart way, or the easy way maybe, of starting out all of our queries is always start with the select star on the table. Even if we're going to bring in multiple tables, even if we're going to whittle it down so it's only going to give us some of the columns, we can get everything and then whittle it down or join things to add more things to it and build it piece by piece. Because I had a wonderful mentor in my master's program, Dr. Muhammad Ayati, and he said, Bek, complexity is merely the aggregation of simplicity. And what he meant by that was that you can't solve a complex problem, but you can break it down into small bites, and then you and 10,000 friends can swallow an elephant in one bite if you make 1-inch, bite-sized cubes out of the elephant, and you have enough friends to do it. So we always start by breaking down the complexity, or starting with the simple case. The simple case is always select star. So select star from, and we said this is going to be all the customers. So there's all the customers. But we don't want all the customers. We want all the customers. Actually, we don't even want all of the columns from customers. We're only going to want the names of customers with credit limits of $10,000 or more. Let's put the $10,000 or more in here first. Where credit limit, and is it $10,000 or more, or is it greater than $10,000? And it's of $10,000 or more. So this is where a lot of students lose the point. Not greater than, but in this case, 10,000 or more is greater than or equal to 10,000. And let's test it. Does that look right? Okay. Sanity check.
Yeah.
Look over here. It looks okay. Okay. Now, but this would still be a wrong answer. I missed the point because it didn't say give me all of the information. what information did it want? It said list the names, and the customer name is customer name. List the names of customers with credit limits of $10,000 or more. This should bother you. It's okay, but it should still bother you. If I'm only displaying the customer name, can I perform logic on something that isn't going to be displayed? I'm not going to display the credit limit, but I am going to display the names. Is that okay? Yes, that's perfectly okay. You don't have to show what your decision criteria was, so long as it's in the criteria. What you display has nothing to do with what you are deciding on.
Got it.
Okay. And so just for sanity check, I got 4 here. If I just print the names, and the names should be Brookings, Almonton, Kress, and Kleins. Let's execute it. Brookings, Almonton, Kress, and Kleins. So this piece still worked even though I'm not displaying the credit limit.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Got
And
it.
so if you're looking where that fits, that is analogous. So that's TAL number 3. That's analogous to our assignment exercise number 2. You can do something very similar to that. So if you look at that, you should be able to apply it. Let's take a look at TAL number 4. TAL number 4 says this one. List the order number for each order. So I think we're working from the orders table that was placed by customer number 126 on a certain date. And it says, if you don't know how to do the date thing, here's a hint. Take a look at figure 316 in chapter 3. And I've got the textbook, the electronic edition of the textbook up behind there. Let's see how far we can get this by ourselves. So we always start with select star. Then what's the table that has the order number for each order placed by customer? That's got to be the orders table, right? And we could double check it. Way to double check it, come over here, look at the orders table, and look at the columns and say, does it have an order number? Does it have an item? No, let's see. It said, list the order number for each order placed by a customer. Does it have a customer number? Oh, I grabbed the wrong one. That's order line. That's why it's not looking right. Try it over orders. There we go. Order num, date, and customer number. Ah, okay. Now I'm happy. From customer. Okay, run that. There's where that is. And what do I need to do with it? I need to list the order number for each customer placed by customer number 126. Okay, so where, there's going to be a couple criteria here. So I'm going to split the line out and say customer number equals 126. Does that work? Yeah, okay, that's one, but not just customer 126. And is it and or on a particular date? And they want it on the date 10/15/2005. So am I seeing the customer date? Do I have the, oh, my talking heads are probably in the way. No?
Nope.
Nope.
Ah, am I in the wrong table? Let's take a look.
Order date?
Let's take a look at the order line. And let's just go ahead and script that out. Order number, item number, number ordered. Not the order date. Am I in the right?
It wasn't in the item?
Double check. I may have grabbed my the wrong notes. If I grabbed something from a future class, then there's we're going to learn how to combine the tables, how to link them together, and so it wouldn't be customer; it would be in orders. And am I in the right? I'm in TAL. Yeah. Okay. So not order line. Then it should be
Orders, order date there.
Yeah, there's order date. How did I miss that? Oh. Did I, let's try that again. Select star, orders. Did I type customers or something weird like that before? Okay, there's the order number, order date. Oh yeah, okay. Senior moment. See, it happens to me. Okay. That's the order number for each
I
order,
have whole,
like customer 126 from orders. And now we want to add in where customer equals 126. Or customer what? Or customer number equals 126. And so there are two here, and we want to filter it down to and
10:15.
order. Break this out. The computer doesn't care how we break this out. Okay, as long as we end the clause at the right with the right syntax. But it's sometimes more readable or easy to parse for a human being. So I say where this and that, I put them on different lines. Where order date, and we want to say equals, and it's got to be 10:15. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a couple of syntaxes for putting in the date that will work. If I put in that, this appears to be an expression 2015 minus 10 minus 15. Okay, which is going to give me 1990. That's probably not what I intend. I could treat it like a string, and let's see if that will actually work. In fact, it does. This is not the and for in this class, that's a full credit answer. But down the line, you're going to learn that if it has to convert, you've entered it as a string, and it successfully converted it to a date to compare to the date. That conversion step takes extra CPU cycles. If you are now working with very, very large data sets, 100 million rows, a billion rows, something like that, then doing a conversion is not going to be great. So that's where I'm going to refer you to the figure 316 in chapter 3, and how do we denote a date? Gosh, I don't even know if I remember.
Well, I have a dumb question. Sorry. What if the date isn't in that format?
There are different date formats.
Yeah.
And in some cases, the SQL Server will recognize that you have a different date format, and it can automatically convert it for you. And SQL Server is nice. It will. If you're working in certain other databases, such as MySQL, you have to do a date conversion, a cast, and you have to change the format either of the date to which you are comparing it. So you would change the as it reads each table date. That's really inefficient SQL.
Mm-hmm.
Or you would have to change this string and convert it into a date type, and that's called casting. And you can use a function that will do that. I'm going to leave this for your further exploration because we're actually 5 minutes beyond what I promised time-wise, and I want to be respectful of time. And notice that, so although this is not the most efficient, it does work. And the reason it is not the most efficient is it is depending upon SQL Server to one time. If I were converting on this side, it would have to convert every result that comes back, every row of the table. That would really be bad. But here it's going to convert my value into a date so that it can then compare it many times. But it's still not as efficient as it could be. And people who write really, really efficient code make really, really good money. And people who write less efficient mode and get the job done, they make good money too. But, you know, I'll tell you, it doesn't take that much more effort to learn to write really efficient code, and it pays dividends for a lifetime. So, and I've got an error here. Where did I introduce it? Did I put a space in there? Nope. So I'm not sure.
Quotations, not. Oh, there it is.
And order date equals.
Doesn't it need a?
Now it's happy. I don't know what I did. I may have had an extra space. So there it is. There's the filter for that. And there are more parallel exercises, but happily, we got sidetracked into more important questions that you guys ask, and that's always way better. I think I may have already linked an old recording where I go through more of the parallel exercises. So I'll just leave that out there, and we'll add this to it. And students can feel free to ignore. If there's too much information, you can always ignore what's not.
I feel bad because I used to rely on the parallel exercises to do my homework. So
Well, here's the other thing: is that we've got a whole Q&A discussion.
Yeah.
And if students will post questions, or if they say, "Hey, yeah, Professor, I particularly am stuck on number 15. Would you show me a parallel of that?" It's nothing to me to record that one exercise and link it in, and I can just take that one and link it right into as a response to the Q&A. And then anybody who actually shows the initiative to go look at the Q&A gets the benefit of it, right? It's there for everybody. So
Right.
I'm happy to do that. This is all about me seeing you guys succeed. So if that's what it takes to help you be successful, I think that's great.
Great. Thank you. I learned a lot tonight.
Great. Well, thank you. And
Yeah,
really,
thank you.
really excellent questions, and we learned some really good tricks that I don't often have a chance to demonstrate that I think people like, especially the one where you come down here and you tell it script table as.
That's cool.
And there's all your CrUD right there. So you want to know
Yeah.
how to do a delete on this table. Tell it script a delete. You do the new query editor. There's your template. And you just modify that, add the where clause, because otherwise you're going to delete everything in the table. But that's okay. You now know how to run the scripts to load
Right.
them back up. So you're golden. All right. Thank you guys for attending the Hangout. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks, Mr. Beck.
oh, thank you. And I'll see you in class.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a good night now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.